Coming up on this episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
You know, because, until recently, they're having that golden bachelor guy. But before that, it's always these young, pretty, girls. And I'm like, hey, I am like 50 and flirty and fluffy and fantabulous. I think I should be on that show.
You've probably heard me say this before, but most of the things that kill us are preventable. And that's exactly why I put my heart in his hands, in his care. I'm talking about Dr. Robert Todd Hurst and HealthSpan MD. He's my cardiologist because I appreciate his holistic approach to heart health. There's nothing out there like HealthSpan MD. His AFib reversal program, his CAD reversal program. Get the link on the resources page at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com. At Metal Joe, they sell more than shirts. They sell apparel with a purpose. In fact, my favorite hoodie in my closet is a Mental Joe hoodie. They help out G.I. Joes to the average Joe's one t-shirt at a time. With every purchase, you help them support organizations that can provide services to help others get out of their heads and into their bodies through plant medicines, equine therapy, yoga, and other non-traditional mental health treatments. Link to them. Pick out your favorite t-shirt or hoodie right now at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com/resources.
Looking for no bullshit conversation about mental health? Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm 52 years old.
Yes, you are. Hey, Elizabeth, what story are you here to share today?
I think I'm here to share that being a human is hard. Like, just life is hard. And I think when you add things into it, like being a teenager or going to college or getting married, having kids, death, grief, divorce, infidelity, like just all these things, when you add those things in there, life is really hard. And I think people tend to get fearful of things. They get fearful of change. They get fearful of what's going to happen next or what if. And I really would like to talk about that and to talk to anybody who is doing life, right? We're all doing life. And just talk to people who are doing life hear it.
I love that. All right. Well, listen, let's jump right into it. Elizabeth and I go back a few years. The truth is she wrote a children's book once upon a time. And I brought her on my then radio show to have a conversation about that children's book. What was the name of it again? It was called
Sticker Room Adventure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, she's done a bunch of cool stuff. Like, yeah, she's an author. She's also a stand-up comedian from time to time. For the last 29, 30 years, you've been in education as a teacher.
Correct.
So you're kind of the jack of all trades, aren't you, Elizabeth?
I am.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, but you're right. I am.
You got your hands in just about everything. So, welcome. It's great to see you again. How have you been?
I've been okay. I've had my ups and downs.
Okay.
Life deals you ups and downs.
Well, this is a podcast where you can come and talk about it. And that's what's so cool about what we do here is that we give people a chance to just unload and talk about it in a very real way. And one of the things that you said in the onset, which I loved so much, was you said, life is just freaking hard. Mm-hmm. And it's not always these gigantic big T's, big traumas that come and crush us. It's everyday things like work, being a teenager, raising a teenager, going to college, paying for college, the life of a teacher, which is in and of itself very challenging. So I like that you kind of set the table to say, hey, listen, we're not getting into anything crazy today. This is just about the normal shit that life sends everybody and how we navigate those things. Am I hearing that right?
You are hearing that right.
Man. All right. Well, cool. I'm excited to get into this conversation. And, we love to start on this podcast with the first 10 years of people's lives because it gives us a really good look at how it started. And then that helps us understand, in some cases, why we're where we are. So walk us through the first 0 to 10. What's it looking like for Liz?
Well, I grew up here in Arizona, born and raised, so I'm a native. And I have an older brother who's 3.5 years older. My parents, they were transplants from other places, and they actually met on a blind date. My mother was an educator, of course, and my father worked for the newspaper. And so, we did a lot of family vacations in the summer because my mother had off. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of a really great childhood. Mom was home. If she wasn't teaching, she cooked, she cleaned, just that kind of stuff. I just have a lot of good memories from childhood. We were the house that sort of had all the kids on the block. We all congregated at our house. We had a pool.
I love that.
Which, of course, everybody in Arizona, if you have a pool, it doesn't matter if people like you or not. They're there because they want the pool kind of thing. But we just, I had a really great childhood as far as home was concerned. My parents were very big into travel. So we got to travel a lot. We had a lot of exchange students. So the first 10 years, I would say that it was normal, whatever. Of course, everybody's definition of normal is different, but, it was just a pretty good childhood. There were things, I slept on my back for forever because I was afraid my dad, was going to come in and spank me, and at least I could roll over if he was trying to, spank my bottom or something. So there's those little things, but otherwise it was a really good childhood.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of childhood that a lot of people can relate to, and and in many ways is that kind of what we deem norm, and so I get that. But it doesn't sound like it wasn't without some shit, and that's what I thought. I love to talk about this because so many people will never come clean about it. I'm like, listen, when I was growing up, we had all the good stuff, but we had the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
We just did, and some of that's the generation you and I grew up in because we're relatively close in age. Yeah. So, it was just different back then. Do you think, this is a question I like to ask people, especially folks our age, do you think your parents would have done a lot of things differently if they'd known what they know today?
I don't think so.
Really?
I just think that that's a hard question, actually, because, of course, when my parents were a little bit older, so they had my brother and I, my mom was 36 when she had me, so okay. She was quite a bit older, and I just think that the generations that they grew up in, things were way different than they are now. Right. I don't think so. I don't. That's a hard question, but I don't think so.
Okay, that's a fair answer. It's a fair answer. So, let's jump into some of the stuff that you came on this podcast to talk about. And you mentioned a couple of them. You said divorce, you said death, dealing with grief is something that I'm passionate about. We've got a grief relief retreat, as a matter of fact, coming up in just a few weeks, which I'm really looking forward to. Mm-hmm. When does grief enter your life?
So back in 2015, my mother passed away unexpectedly. She actually had surgery, but she passed away like 3 days later, and it was unexpected. She was totally fine. And then, so my mother was my best friend. Growing up,
you became a teacher just like she was, right?
Right.
I get it.
Growing up when I was younger, we weren't best friends. But after getting married, having kids, I would talk to her a couple of times a day. My dad would joke, when your mom dies, are we putting a cell phone in her coffin? Because, you talk to her all the time. And so it was very hard to lose someone that you're so close with. And she was really close with my boys. I have 2 boys. And so very close with them. And then 2 months and 8 days later, my dad passed away. And so, you're still kind of grieving your mom and then going through a lot with your dad before he passes. And grief, boy, it just can bite you in the butt. I mean, they show that cycle of grief, and you don't know if you're coming or going some days. And
some hours.
You're just trying to survive. And of course, I had my two boys who were, 8 and 12. Maybe 6 and 12. And so just trying to keep it together for them. And it was really difficult. I did have an episode in the laundry room where I finally had to let some things out. And, it's tough, like just screaming because you just can't handle it anymore. But one thing that I will say is counseling. They do have some great resources out there for grief counseling. And so I think that has really helped. But when you think about 2015 to now, 8 years, grief never goes away. It just changes its form. And so even now, it's still difficult on her birthday or even the day she passed. And, things like that. Like grief is one of those things that is hard.
Well, and it's just such a deeply personal experience for everybody. Mm-hmm. It, like you said, it takes a lot of different shapes and forms. And, let's pass out some advice, right? The podcast is called Learn from People Who Lived It. And if you've learned anything about grief, if I've learned anything about grief, it's that
you have to feel the feelings and you can't push them away. You just got to go freaking through it and give yourself permission to go through it, because some days are fine. And other days it's like, how am I going to get out of bed?
Exactly. And one thing that I could add to that is don't ever let anybody tell you that you should be done grieving. Ever.
Yeah, wow.
Don't ever let anybody tell you that, because, again, they're not walking in your shoes. They have no clue. And again, grief doesn't end. It just changes its form. I'm when I look at how I was in 2015 to now, wow, it's been amazing. But back then, I meade my brother promise for 5 years not to go out of town on a holiday. Yeah. Because it's just my brother and I now, except for my boys and stuff. We don't have any relatives here, but, I made him, and he did promise. So he's an awesome brother, but, you just, don't let anybody ever tell you should be done.
Yeah. It's a good opportunity to remind our audience that one of our resource partners is called Eric's House, and Eric's House is set up for sudden loss. And so you and I both know exactly what that feels like. One of our proud resource partners is Eric's House. Here's the deal. Nothing quite prepares us for the heartache of a profound loss. And grief isn't a problem to be fixed, but rather a normal reaction to loss. So when somebody you love dies, it might feel like everything you once knew as true has changed. When we experience that loss, especially the ones that are really unexpected, like suicide or addiction, grief is complicated. That's where the community at Eric's House comes in. Link to them on the resources page at learnfrompeoplewholiveit.com. Here's a question I've always danced with, and I'll ask you because you've danced maybe with it too. I used to think, like, what's worse, like having your parent just ripped out, or having this long drawn out, like, battle with cancer or something like that, and then they end up in hospice and they eventually, just kind of slip away. What's your feeling on that?
My feeling is it's actually worse to have someone go suddenly. Now, my father, obviously 2 months and 8 days wasn't that long of a time before my mom passed, but the fact that she, I just saw her the night before. She was fine. and she was getting ready to go to the doctor's appointment to have the doctor check her knee. And my mom had health problems. So, I knew she was 80 years old.
Sure.
And she had, 2 open heart surgeries. I mean, she had a lot of health issues. So I knew someday, but I think just that, by the time my brother finally got a hold of me, because we were doing a literacy parade, and by the time I got to the hospital, boom, an hour later, she was gone. And to me, it felt like somebody had taken my heart and just ripped it out and just tore it up. And then, decided, well, here, we'll just put it back. At least with my dad, even with everything going on and trying to grieve my mom, I could talk to him about things, and I could talk to him and kind of, I don't want to say make my peace, but kind of, tell him, hey, Dad, this is how I felt, or that, or whatever. But with her, it was like poof, and she's gone. And to me, that's worse. But again, my dad, he didn't have cancer or anything like that. So,
do you think he died of a broken heart? Was it anything like that?
Yeah.
Was it anything like your dad died of a broken heart? Did he just miss his wife, and was it so hard? Or
I think it was part of that.
Yeah.
And he had just given up. We noticed my dad, like when he was forced into retirement, and then wasn't really able to drive as much as he used to. He sort of kind of went downhill from that. My dad, working for the newspaper in circulation, and then he worked at Brown and Brown Chevrolet. And so he kind of, started to decline. And then when my mom went, I think too, they had just the year before had their 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And so I think, it was a combination. He was already kind of starting to go, where he didn't care. And it's like, but you have your grandsons, you should care. We understand mom's gone, but yeah, I think it was a combination of both.
Hey, another tool just entered my mind, and again, learned from people who lived it. And that's let yourself be angry sometimes too. And even at the person that died. Like, I think that's such a thing to give people grace on, because you just said something that really touched me. You probably could see my eyes close there for a hot sec as I was just kind of going internal on this. And I'm thinking, you left, man. And I didn't get to say certain things, and there's still shit I wanted to do with you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about that. But let yourself feel that. And
right. She was the one, especially for school years, every time it was a new school year, I could go talk to her about it. And I mean, since she was an educator, she kind of felt, she knew what I was going through, if it was a bad school year or whatever. Or talking about things with marriage or about the boys, because she was married, she had kids, and she was always my go-to person to talk to about things, and she was gone.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I was like, you left me. Like, what do I do now? Well, I still am alive. I still have, my brother, my children, at the time, my husband, my colleagues, my friends, I had a great support with them, but you left me. And then my dad left me, even though I knew it was coming, it wasn't sudden, but you both left me.
Yeah, it is tough. Wait, but one of the things about you is, you've got this mindset of like, let me just try things. Let me sort of see where this goes. And as evidenced by writing the book, doing stand-up comedy, some of the things that you've kind of taken and tried new things. And so, where does that spirit come from? Is that something born in childhood to just try things?
No, it wasn't, because when I was younger, even though I was very social, or people, talkative, even though I was like that, I didn't really want to try new things. I My self-esteem was a little bit lower back in the day, but I think in 2008, I ended up having pulmonary embolism. It's like I had two. So is it emboli or embolisms? I'm not sure, but I had blood clots in my lungs.
Okay.
And the doctors were like, you should have been dead, basically. And I think from then I have just thought to myself, what do I have to lose? Okay, if I submit my idea for the book and they say no, okay, well, I haven't lost anything except for a little bit of time. When
maybe a little pride. Maybe a little pride.
When I went up to do the stand-up comedy for the first time, I thought, well, what do I have to lose? 3 minutes, and if they don't laugh, they don't laugh, I mean, deep down I'm thinking, oh crap, they better laugh. But, I'm like, what do I really have to lose? Nothing.
Everybody wants to know, did they laugh?
They did, except for the two girls in the front row.
They were giving you a hard time, huh?
Oh my gosh, they were these young girls, and so I was focused on them.
Oh no.
And then I missed the light, and they had to play the music for me. That was awful. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. But then I felt like I'm at the Academy Awards. They have, my speech was so long that they have to play the music. I was like, whoa, but.
You made it. You made it.
I did. And then I had 5 minutes. It wasn't even 3. They gave me 5 minutes.
It's nice.
Because I brought like 22 people to see me. So.
You were bar sales for the evening. I got it.
Yeah. Let me tell you. But it's amazing just what your life.
Yeah.
How you can make jokes about your life.
Sure. Did you joke about like your lungs? Did you joke about, I don't know, your mom and dad? Like, was everything off on the table for you?
Well, it was, but again, 5 minutes goes fast.
I know. You got time for like 3 quality jokes.
Right? So I told a joke about The Bachelorette.
Okay.
Because until recently they're having that golden bachelor guy. But before that, it's always these young, pretty, girls. And I'm like, hey, I am like 50 and flirty and fluffy and fantabulous. I think I should be on that show. Or I did do one joke about being in the hospital back when I had the blood clots. So that was a good one. And then I don't even remember what my first one was, but my friend bought the video, like they'll record you. Yeah. It was at Stir Crazy Comedy Club at Westgate.
I love it.
So I went back and looked at it, and of course you cringe because you're like, oh my gosh, I did that, or I said that. I kept saying, right. Like through the whole thing, right. Like I would say something, right. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But
in radio, we called those crutches. And people would make you acutely aware of them quickly. And by people, I mean your program directors. They would be like, stop saying right. Tomorrow morning, you're not allowed to say right. I want you to write the word right on a Post-it note. We'll put it right in front of your face. And you never say it, not even one time.
Never again. Never again.
That's crazy. All right. So you got color. Your life has a lot going on. And then 2008, I mean, to have that near death-ish experience, like you say what you want, that gets a person's attention. And then to really experience loss through your parents in, 2015, you said?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then just a couple of years after that, you mentioned that you got a divorce, and I don't want to talk about the details of the divorce, but here's something I'm always curious about when I chat with folks who have been through it. How long did it take to happen? And because my feeling is like sometimes it bubbles up for years. And then finally somebody's kind of ready to just be, I'm done with this shit. So what was your experience?
So it's funny that you say it that way because it's true. My mom used to say we were never on the same page.
Yeah.
Ever. And you have to be on the same page most of the time. And we were never on the same page. Ever. And so, after my parents died, things kind of slowly declined. Unfortunately, the support after they died wasn't really there.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And so it slowly declined. But then one day he decided he was divorcing me.
Okay.
Okay. And, things happened. And then he wasn't divorcing me. Well, then I started thinking, maybe I need to think about this a little bit more. And I was actually the one then that decided, and there was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was on our, 23rd wedding anniversary when I decided, you know what? Yep. This needs to happen. And I filed for divorce.
So, okay, again, getting back to the whole purpose behind what we're here to do, which is to say, like, maybe there's somebody listening right now and they're like, I think I'm in a marriage. It's not working out. I think I should just get divorced, but they're just terrified of what's going to happen on the other side. It's probably unrealistic to say there won't be any tension, but the tension hopefully doesn't last forever. Can you speak to any degree of that?
Well,
or am I wrong? I mean, be honest. Like, I'm sure it sucks for a while, right? Because you have kids and there's houses and where are we going to live and how are we going to do this and who's going to drive and what days do you get them? And so once you sort all that stuff out, can you get back to a life that makes sense for you?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay.
You can. And that's what I'm doing now. And the divorce was final in March of 2020.
Okay.
So I filed in 2019. So, and again, you're grieving the loss of your marriage. And, it's not the same as, the loss of somebody who dies, but it definitely, you go through grief again and all of that. And it does take a while, and you do, I kind of think of it as, it's like you're a caterpillar, but you're in a caterpillar that metamorphoses and becomes this butterfly. Then you're another caterpillar and then this butterfly. And so each time, you have to go in your little cocoon or whatever, or chrysalis, excuse me. And, and you come out this butterfly, but each time as you go along, the butterfly grows and changes. And again, from where I was when I filed for divorce to now is amazing.
I want to talk about something now that you have kind of been dropping along the way, and then hearing how clear you were on the chrysalis versus the cocoon. I was like, that's the teacher. That's the teacher in her. You've been an educator almost 30 years. How has that profession changed from the moment you got into it to now? Like, is there one glaring thing? Are there a few glaring things? What would you say they are?
I think from when I started, it was way different in 1995. And when I say way different, I mean, as far as, no, kids have changed. You hear that, oh, kids haven't changed, it's you. No, kids have changed. With social media, kids have changed. With the pandemic, kids have changed. And it's just, because
adults changed, didn't we? Honestly, we adults changed with social media. Adults changed with the pandemic. And here's, to me, one of the biggest things that was not there when you started was the access to you. Parents couldn't email you. There was not going to be all this back and forth. You weren't going to be texting. It was none of that, right? Like, if a parent wanted to talk to you, they had to schedule an appointment and come in and have a meeting with you, and you guys could work shit out.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
There isn't that anymore. Now it's like anything. I'm on the keyboard, and there's some good and bad parts to that, but still, that's a massive change.
It is a massive change, yes.
Yeah. What else? What else is different from 95 to almost 2025 here in a couple?
I think that we have sort of forgotten, and it may have started a little bit before I started teaching, but we have forgotten about what is developmentally appropriate for kids at certain stages. And because I'm an early childhood educator, of course, that's why I'm talking about this, because, you know, kindergarten is the new first grade, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the new first grade. And it broke my heart when, you know, my principal kept coming and saying, you need to get rid of your little kitchen area. You don't have time for that. No, I need to make time for that. Well, how are you going to tie that to an objective? You know, it was all about, well, how are you going to, and well, they need to socialize. They need to talk to each other. They need to pretend. They need to do all these things that for some reason, whoever it is, the powers that be have decided, no, kids need to sit at a desk or a table and it's worksheets or drilling or this or that. And it shouldn't be that way. And I'm not saying, you know, obviously in the upper grades, you know, is a little different. But as far as early childhood is concerned, we're doing a lot of developmentally inappropriate things instead of developmentally appropriate things. And I'm not saying every single school and every single school district or anything like that, but a majority in the U.S., you know, kindergarten is not developmentally appropriate anymore unless you're going to a private school.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Do you feel, and I want you to think about this, don't just snap an answer, but from the people that you serve, meaning the kids and the families that come with them, do you feel appreciated?
No, I don't.
Oh.
And I know that from everybody has a lot going on. You know, it's just that day and age, we all have a lot going on. But it, you know, it's hard to, I'm trying to think of the right words to say, but I don't think, sometimes people don't know how to appreciate you. You know, it doesn't have to be giving you a gift. It could just be, you know, we're glad that you're our child's teacher. You know, thank you for working with me on their behavior. Thank you for teaching my child how to read. You know, just little things like that. Like, it doesn't have to be something that costs money. And so I think, especially the families that I serve, they don't know how to do it the other way. And they definitely are not able to do it with money.
What about things like being able to run the classroom the way you want? You mentioned like they came and said, get rid of your kitchen. And you thought, man, no, this is what we need to be doing. Do you feel like you get to run your show, or do you sometimes feel like, I don't know, you just Google and you're like, here, learn this. Here's what you need to learn this. I don't know. I wonder like how you feel about that.
So I do think it's sort of a combination.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes teachers do, they're like, okay, well, they've told me to do this and now I'm going in my classroom, you know. I mean, not that I'm not going to teach what needs to be taught, but don't tell me that I have to be a cookie cutter teacher.
There it is.
Because my way of teaching is different from anybody else's.
I'll bet you laugh a lot in your classroom.
I do. You know, last year I didn't, but I do. And little kids are funny.
Yes.
The way that they say things, you
right?
know, because if they're not sure, like, we go back to the like Paschetti, when they would say it instead of spaghetti. So they do say funny things. Or, I had a kid just spontaneously fall out of his chair, you know, and so just laughing at the little things that the kids do, they just make you laugh.
Well, I'm gonna come clean on you here. I want to show you something really quick.
Okay.
So when I go and talk to teachers about self-care strategies and burnout and such, I show them this slide right here. I'm going to pull this up so those who are looking can check it out. But look at this. These are the top things that contribute to teachers being burnt out. And right now the statistic says that 44% of teachers experience burnout on some level daily. Not once a week, once a month, once a year, daily they're experiencing. And look at the things that contribute to burnout. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, I'll mention them. It's poor school funding, complications due to COVID, unattainable goals for standardized testing, classroom behavior issues, dealing with difficult parents, not enough planning time, feeling underappreciated, and lack of autonomy. And isn't it interesting that you and I sort of just went through this list? You served up about half of them without me asking. And then I got into a couple of these other ones. But when you look at that list, do you almost feel like, and I ask this of other teachers too, don't you almost feel like this is the description of a teacher, is to deal with these things?
Oh, definitely.
It's incredible. It's incredible. The ask right now on all of those things. Well, that's fascinating. Thanks for going through that. So here's a good opportunity to ask you a question, which is like, okay, you mentioned you had a difficult year last year. What are some of your tools, Elizabeth, to, not lose your damn mind? Like, what do you do to let some air out of the tires?
Well, obviously, while I'm in the situation, I think a lot of things in my head. You know what I mean? That I would never say. But I'm like, okay, I let me just say that in my head so I can, kind of move on. And, I'm a talker, in case you couldn't tell. But so
it's not obvious.
Just talking to people like other teachers, or even like I said, I have been to counseling. And so even just talking about these things, it makes me feel better. I don't, that's not for everybody, but talking about it. Always thinking tomorrow is a new day. And even when I talk to students, if there have been issues that day and I have to speak to a parent, I always say to them, tomorrow is a new day.
Yes.
It's like we get a do-over and then another do-over, which, there are days I need a do-over. Everybody needs a do-over. So, I just think about it that way. Tomorrow's a new day. Hopefully, it's going a different way than it did today. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
Here's a question. How many days are we supposed to wait? And then if it doesn't fix itself, we're in the wrong place.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know.
I think there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Okay, all right. You're right. That's a big ass spaghetti. What do we call them? Hot dish.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I want to. For some reason, I feel compelled to go to this, but I want to talk about the comedian part of you and the ability to laugh. And I asked you a few seconds ago, do you laugh a lot in your classroom? How has humor been helpful in your healing journey? Not only from the things that you dealt with as a child, but the thing, 2008, then in 15, then the divorce, tough years at school. How do you use humor to get through?
Well, there was actually a period of time where humor was stuffed way down because I didn't think anything was funny. But I will say, you just have to laugh at some things. You just can't. Life is serious. It is serious. And there is serious stuff going on every single day. But sometimes, you do need to laugh. Like, I think about getting together. My brother and I have a lot of mutual friends. And we would get together and we would have like a poker night or a game night. And it was like the night before Christmas. I couldn't wait because I knew that when I got there, we would just be laughing the whole night.
Mm.
And, they say that laughter is the best medicine. It's good for your soul. And it is. It is so good for you, and again, there were times when, I wasn't laughing, but I think if you can sort of laugh at yourself, maybe laugh at the situation, it really helps you a lot. I can laugh at myself sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, no, I'm not laughing at that. But then other times I'm like, oh yeah, I need to just laugh at myself or laugh at the situation, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. Right?
Hey, listen, as I say,
you're going to cry. So
both are incredibly effective at moving space. One just feels better than the other. But
right.
And then the other thing you have to say is, and they're both appropriate at different times. And so you use both of them when you can.
Yeah.
When you wrote to us, you said, my idea is that there's a section of our audience that are just living life, and it's just hard sometimes. What's your overarching theme as people come here to learn from people who lived it? Life is hard sometimes, but what's the medicine for Liz?
Just, again, taking one day at a time. And even though it's hard, I know that, sometimes I'm not very patient. I want a new man, or I need, more money to go on a vacation or something like that. But just take one day at a time. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of change so that you stay in a marriage you shouldn't. Or, even with grief, I'm not going to say there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because like we've said, grief doesn't go away. It changes. Even raising teenage boys, like, things change. It gets different. Some days it gets worse, or some days it's better. But just don't be afraid. And like, I hear a lot of people, they're like, wow, like you wrote a children's book, or you did the stand-up comedy. It's like, what do I have to lose? I mean, heck, I have an idea for an invention. I have an idea for a movie, an idea for, all kinds of stuff out there. So don't be afraid. Like, do it, because life is too short.
Yeah.
And you just never know. Maybe it was what you were meant to do. Maybe I was meant to be a comedian, or, I do, like, maybe I was meant to do a documentary and be up on that stage getting an Academy Award, and they play the music again on me. Like, maybe that's my destiny. I don't know, but you never know if you don't try. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to find another job if where you're at is not where you want to be or should be. Don't be afraid to, eat a different kind of food if you never had. Like, just get out of your box, get out of your comfort zone. And because, it may suck, but it might be lots of fun. You just never know. Like,
oh, isn't that the best part? It's like, yeah, it might not work, but what if it does?
What if, right?
Holy shit. Are you even ready for the goodness that could be waiting for you on the other side? Are you? Right. Because that's the thing that I think halts people, is because we know the negative, we know the bad, and so it's comfortable to go back to that. And the brain even wants to do that, right? Wants to take the easy route out. But what if you leaned into that idea of what it could possibly look like if you just went all in, not halfway, not toe in the water, but like, you quit your damn job after 27 years and you said, I'm going to try something new like I did. What if you just said, right, I believe in myself that much, and I know what's waiting for me on the other side. On the other side is going to be so much better than what I'm putting up with now. I don't know. There's just incredible freedom on the other side of this stuff. And I wish more people would take a chance on themselves.
Right. But again, fear. They're afraid. Yeah. They're afraid. And I saw this quote. You get on Pinterest and you start scrolling, and I'm always looking at the quotes. And there was one, and it was talking about, like, obstacles. So let's say I did the stand-up comedy thing, but it's not like I'm, in LA or on a show. Well, I mean, I'm on this show, but, a show for doing my stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And it was something to the tune of obstacles are put in the way to see if you really want it, right? If you want it bad enough. And again, nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. You have to take that one step. And that's something with my book, because it's, Sticker Room Adventure. They go on this adventure. And when I sign books for people, what I usually write is an adventure takes a first step. Don't be afraid to take that step.
Yeah.
Because you can't be afraid. Because what if on the other side of that, and what if what you're doing, like even doing stand-up, you're helping somebody, you're making somebody laugh and maybe they had an awful day and you make them laugh for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Or you decide that you want to write a children's book. Well, you're giving the love of reading to children. There's always good things. Like I used to think about it as, oh my gosh, it's all about me. Like I want to write this book or I want to do but then I think, no, I want to do this for me, but the end result is for somebody else.
Yes.
I want kids to enjoy reading. I want people to laugh. Those kinds of things. And I think if we thought about it in that way, because a lot of now is me. But if we thought of, okay, well, yeah, it's a little bit about me, but there's the bigger picture, that it would be even more amazing.
I literally just put this up on Instagram today. I was like, what if people operated their life as if they felt great? Can you even imagine the spillover that would take place?
Oh yeah, it would be awesome.
Amazing. Well, listen, I have really enjoyed our conversation today, and thank you so much for coming on this podcast. And we're going to link to all of Elizabeth's stuff. So if you go visit our show notes, you can find links to the book. Who knows when the next stand-up gig is coming up, but we'll make sure that she plugs you into that too. And I wish you nothing but the best as you move forward in this thing called life that can sometimes be hard.
Right? Thank you so much, Matthew. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed seeing you again and talking to you.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
So almost every week of my life for the last 2 years, somebody will ask me about the retreat that changed my life. And I'm so proud to present Spirit Quest as one of our official resource partners. Founded in 2007, it's the holistic wellness center that changed my life, helped me overcome anxiety, helped me work through conflict, gave me all these tools to manage stress, and they would love to do the same thing for you. To connect to Spirit Quest, click the link on our resources tab at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com, and when you get on the phone with them, make sure you mention that you heard it on Learn from People Who Lived It.